Welcome everybody to today's webinar. Just waiting for several more people to log on. We'll give them a minute to do so, and while I'm doing that, let me just offer, this is Stephen Applebaum, and our speaker lineup today includes visionaries and senior claims experience leaders who are highly experienced in thought and action in claims and customer experience. I'll introduce them in a moment. I want to welcome everybody, offer you season's greetings. We have over 800 attendees registered today from many countries and many time zones, so good morning, good afternoon, or good evening as the case may be. And a reminder that today's webinar is presented in conjunction with the Connected Claims USA Summit taking place next year, May 21st, 22nd, at the Sheraton Grand in Chicago, where today's speakers will be some of the panelists and presenters on that program. So again, welcome everybody. I'm going to make a couple of brief introductions here of today's speakers and the companies they represent. And today is a little less formal than usual. There'll be no death by PowerPoint. We will leave lots of time for Q&A, and we look forward to that portion of the segment. But there'll be some prepared remarks initially from each of our speakers. So let me welcome Gary Sullivan, Vice President of Property and Subrogation Claims at Erie Insurance, as well as Krista Breckman, the Director of Customer Experience at the Wawanesa Mutual Insurance Company. Let me just give you some very brief backgrounds on both companies in the event you don't know a lot about them. It'll provide some context to the comments today, I think. So, Erie Insurance Group, based in Erie, Pennsylvania, is a public company. It was founded in 1925, and it's the 11th largest homeowners insurer, the 12th largest auto insurer in the U.S., and the 16th largest property casualty insurer. They're rated A+ by AM Best. They have more than 4.9 million policies in force, and they operate in 12 states as well as the District of Columbia. Erie Insurance Group is a Fortune 500 and a Barron's 500 company, and very proud to have received the J.D. Power Award for highest in customer satisfaction with auto insurance purchase experience 2 years in a row. Erie has also been recognized by Forbes as one of America's 50 most trustworthy financial companies and is on the list of Ward's 50's group of top performing insurance companies. The Wawanesa Mutual Insurance Company is a Canadian insurance firm. Currently, the company's executive offices are located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where Krista is speaking with us today. And they have regional offices across Canada as well as operations in the U.S. The company was established originally as a farmers mutual carrier all the way back in 1896. The company's U.S. business, Wawanesa General Insurance, was established in 1974 and is headquartered in San Diego. Marketing, underwriting, claims processing, and policyholder services are all conducted from the San Diego office. The company is currently licensed to write business in California and Oregon. I'll just add that Wawanesa has made a name for itself in the California market with top-tier consumer satisfaction ratings, including J.D. Power recognitions, and their focus is on good drivers, which allows them to offer lower rates to their target market. Welcome both Gary Sullivan and Krista Breckman. And with that, I would like to introduce Gary and ask him to make his initial remarks. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Stephen. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks to Insurance Nexus and Emma Sheard for the invitation. Thanks, Stephen, for moderating. Glad to be on with Krista. And I just wanted to open up with a few thoughts. Claims automation does encompass a large universe. We look at it from a few different perspectives. The first is the customer experience. From first notice of loss to the investigation of the claim, the adjustment of the claim, and then eventually the adjudication and the payment or denial. We also have to keep in mind the adjuster experience, the assignment process to the adjusters of the claims, investigation and evaluation tools, the system of record, and then their ultimate decisions that they make on those claims. But we also add to that other stakeholders' experiences, Internally, we consider our friends in actuary, underwriting, treasury, sales, and agency. And then from an external standpoint, our key vendors plus other third parties that have an interest in the claim process, such as contractors, body shops, and attorneys. All can and will benefit from technological advances. We need to be careful to ensure all of those impacts are considered. However, what does not change today, in my view, is the need for professional thought, professional decision-making, exceptional communication skills to ensure a great customer experience. That's my opening remarks, and Stephen, I turn it back over to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. Let's do the same and ask Krista to offer her remarks, and then we can move into Q&A. Krista?
Thanks very much, Stephen. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be with you today. As Stephen mentioned, my role at Wawanesa is to help the organization transform its customer experience. And I come to this role in a kind of roundabout way, having spent most of my career in workers' compensation in Canada. I have a deep background in public service, in fact, so I come to their customer experience practice with a really strong sense of insurance as an important component of our social safety net. It provides peace of mind and safety for our policyholders, and we like to say this a lot, that it's a promise that we'll be there to help our customers return to their pre-loss state. So for me, and this is a bit of a contrarian view, I suppose, during this webinar, but it's about human needs and emotions, really. It's not, in essence, it's not about bots and big data and AI and IoT. So after all, it's really during that moment of claim when the promise of insurance is fulfilled. I think about catastrophes such as the wildfires in California now and the ones that we suffered in Alberta in 2016. So when people are fleeing for their lives, they may only be thinking about where they will stay for the night, whether their family or friends or pets are safe. But when they have a moment in the middle of all that chaos to think about, returning their lives back to normal, when they give us the opportunity, in fact, the privilege to serve them, that interaction can be a profoundly emotional human experience. So this is where our best adjusters truly shine, where they can provide comfort, care, empathy, and a calm presence in the center of the chaos. This is what I believe humans do best in connecting with other human beings. I believe we're hardwired for empathy. So as a passionate customer experience practitioner, I know that to understand and improve the customer experience, you need to look at the customer's underlying unmet needs. What's the job that they need to be done? Their underlying need is not for more technology, it's the return to their pre-loss lives, to return to normal. So if that's the case, why am I on this panel today, you may ask? Well, in my mind, bots and big data and AI and IoT can be an enabler of the kind of empathetic customer experience that I want Wawanesa customers to tell their friends about. For an adjuster, robotics can free them from the 1,000 mundane tasks they need to do in a day. Answering claim status questions, issuing payments, reviewing receipts for reimbursements, taking statements, even making some decisions. These are tasks that can be efficiently done by robotics and AI, freeing up our adjusters to connect on a human level with our policyholders. If this advanced technology is done well and it's at its best, it can merge imperceptibly into the customer interaction, making it easier for the insured to experience a customized, tailored interaction that works for them at a time, place, and style that suits, even predicting their needs and questions and putting the answer into their hands before they were even aware that they had a question. If we collect the right kind of data and connect the right pieces together in the right way, we can use the insights we gain to provide a new kind of empathetic service, one that predicts customer needs and allows us to reach out at just the right time. It goes beyond best practice, in fact, to tailoring the experience to the customer. Because in my mind, after all, we're in a human service industry, and machines help to free up our people to do what they do best. which is to connect to other human beings. Thanks.
Thanks, Krista. Let me remind everybody that you're welcome to begin submitting questions on any of the related topics, whether it be any of the information that Gary or Krista just shared, or anything relative to the topic of today's webinar, which is fusing human and machine for seamless automated insurance claims. We already have a few questions, and maybe that would be a good way to move forward. So let me ask both Gary and Krista in that order. And let me first offer an observation and then ask a question, and that is that looking back over claims webinars and conferences for the past 25 or so years that I've been in the industry, I hadn't seen, at least until very recently, so many references to customer experience in claims discussions. They were more process-oriented. But now we have Krista today and so many other similar speakers appearing in claims-related conferences. So considering today's title, which is basically people and technology in claims for a seamless experience, can I ask each of Gary and Krista for some practical examples of where you see in your organization and your experience both people and technology coming together to impact the claim experience for policyholders? And Gary, may I start with you?
Sure. We, as an organization, in a claims organization, just recently completed our transition to a new claims management system. We had an old legacy system that had been in place for over 20 years that we built ourselves, and we replaced it with the Guidewire product. And it has been a rather long and extensive journey, but has gone exceptionally well, especially in property. We were the last release, and we had our primary integration was with our estimating platform, Symbility. And Symbility is a hub of activity for our adjusters to assign a lot of different vendors, as well as prepare an estimate of damage for the policyholder on their property claims. The technology of the Claim Center, the Guidewire Claim Center, and the interaction with Symbility as being a full integration has freed up our adjusters to piggyback on some of Krista's comments by allowing those adjusters to be more efficient with their time and spend more time with our policyholders on their claims. The system efficiencies have, for property especially, have been great. We also, on the auto side, use CCC, and that's another tool that has allowed our adjusters, as it has evolved, to become more efficient and obtain all they need, allow the adjusters to obtain all they need to complete an estimate. The issue, though, again, to mirror what Krista mentioned, the issue is to make sure that our adjusters never forget the human touch. We want to make sure that high tech meets human touch, and there are a lot of tools out there that can be implemented and implemented in a smart manner to allow that to occur. And for us, a major project that we just completed was the implementation of the Guidewire project, or Guidewire product, and the integration that we did with our Symbility property tool.
Thanks, Gary. Just a follow-up question before I ask Krista to comment. Does everything you said really mean that this new expression that's entering the industry of touchless claims does not necessarily mean people-less claims?
I would agree with that. We need to have, as an industry, different channels of interacting with our customers. And I don't think someone who has suffered a total loss house fire is going to want to engage with a chatbot. They're going to want to have the adjuster on site helping them get through this traumatic experience and help them put them back in pre-loss condition, helping them get temporary housing, helping them with their contents, helping them put their lives back in order. So technology can enable that process, but we're not going to be replacing our policy, or we're not going to be replacing the adjusters with technology.
Thanks for the additional insight. Krista, do you have any comments to offer on the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to jump off something that Gary was just talking about. I think about my millennial children and my nieces and nephews, and I think about the fact that they don't like talking to people on the phone, and they probably wouldn't want to report a claim on the phone. But if they were faced with a situation that was like a house fire or something that was a little bit more traumatic than a fender bender, I know that they would want someone to hold their hand. So I think there's a combination that is available to us of people to service, frankly, because sometimes the best service is no service at all when you are able to access the information that you need to have at 3 o'clock in the morning in your pajamas. I think technology enables us to do that. Certainly, we are a Guidewire shop as well. We've been with Guidewire for certainly many years, although we had fallen into the pitfall of customizing our Guidewire product such that we're not perhaps getting the benefit of all new releases. So we're looking at adjusting some of that. But I would also say that in response to your initial question, Stephen, with regard to what kind of practical things that we're doing in our organizations to fuse human and machine, Guidewire is certainly one of those things. We're also looking at ways of automating frequently asked questions, both for our adjusters so they have access to an up-to-date knowledge base about frequently asked questions around the claims process, but also looking at providing that to our customers in the form of a chatbot too. So those are sort of edge situations that we're looking at, but certainly our integrations with Mitchell and other organizations through Guidewire will help us to provide the kind of information that customers need kind of whenever they need it.
Thanks, Krista. It's interesting, both of you have liberally referenced integrations with platforms and third-party providers, which are basically technologies that you're using in claims, and how that is improving the customer experience. Also a relatively, not necessarily new, but increasingly more frequent occurrence in the claims environment. I'm going to turn to, we have dozens of questions coming in now. I'm going to turn to the first one and ask both Gary and Krista to comment if you wish. This question is, how can automation help resolve customer queries? And I'm going to take the liberty to insert the word customer claim queries. So how can automation help resolve customer claim queries? In what, in your company, what practical experience have you had, if any, in that regard? Gary?
That's an excellent question. We'll be leveraging the capabilities of the Guidewire product to see where we might be able to enhance our interactions with our customers. One of the issues that we always have to keep in mind with Erie Insurance is that our sole sales distribution channel is through independent agents. So they are an important part of the claim process to Erie just as much as the policyholder. So we look at the experience of the independent agent as well as our customer as we're looking at these sorts of capabilities to enhance the customer experience. One of the things that is something that we would certainly analyze is providing the information on the claim to the customer. So that's something that we'll need to vet and also to develop an answer for our independent agent partners as well.
Gary, do you receive a very high percentage of your claim first notices through your independent agencies?
Yes, we do. It depends on the line of business, but roughly half of our claims are reported to Erie through the independent agent force. So they are a key component of our claim process, and they do an outstanding job. When you look at the J.D. Power feedback that we receive on the auto claims experience and the property claims experience, we're highly rated on the agent experience, and that's a testament to our independent agent partners in the field. They do an outstanding job helping our common customer, the policyholder.
So as Erie continues to adopt and deploy technologies in claims to improve the experience, do you find that you are needing your independent agency force to keep pace with you and implement digital technologies as well, or is that really sort of irrelevant to the process?
What we've done in our processing is make sure that the system that they are interfacing with to get the claims into the claim center is user friendly and easy to upload, and the experience that our first notice of loss team has mirrors that of the independent agent system, so that while they're not exactly the same operating system, they're still Guidewire, and they still provide the information that we need on the claim process.
Great clarification. Thank you. Krista, I'm going to reposition the question just slightly, if I may. You can answer it in any way you wish, but so how does automation help improve customer experience on the claims side for Wawanesa?
So I can only speak to what we're moving towards, because the customer experience practice of Wawanesa is very fresh. We're a small team and growing, but what we're looking at is finding ways to bring in customer data. So when I talk about customer data, I'm not just talking about demographics or claims data, but also sentiment analysis. So in our interactions with our customers, whether it's on the phone or in person or any other kind of contact, let's analyze that feedback, both solicited through surveys and unsolicited, bring that together, find places where we could do better, locate patterns, identify opportunities for improvement, share that back in a big closed loop to the organization for continuous improvement around customer experience, but also feed it back in a small closed loop way back to adjusters, supervisors, so that they can tackle the issues that will inevitably come up before they become big issues. And technology will help us to do that. We're looking at implementing some of that in the new year.
Thank you for that, and good luck on that journey. Here's a question that can go off in a number of directions, but I think you're both going to find it interesting to deal with, and it is as follows. Where do you use automation and digital transformation to support and drive efficiencies for independent adjusters in catastrophic events? And we certainly had no shortage of catastrophic events. And Krista, I have a feeling you're going to have some particular comments given your dominance or presence in the California market. But let me start with Gary. So automation for IAs around catastrophe. Any good examples of that on the property side of claims?
Well, what we've done with our Symbility platform is we've connected vendors to the platform so that when we need to assign claims, we do it through the Symbility platform. And we have our own catastrophe team now, so our reliance upon independent adjusters has gone down, but it has not been eliminated. We're still going to need key players to assist us when we have those high volume events. And we connect our independent adjuster partners on the CATs through the Symbility platform. So when we get claims in, we assign them through Symbility. They work in the claim in Symbility. They upload their photos in the tool. They write their estimate in the tool. They can upload documents, and then our adjusters and supervisors who are going to ultimately complete the claim, they have all the information needed right before them in the Symbility platform. And then any activities that take place because of the full integration with the Guidewire Claim Center, those activities are documented in the system of record, and there's no duplication of effort. So we've gotten pretty efficient with not only our own adjusting staff, but any time that we have to engage outside vendors, including our independent adjuster partners.
So are you seeing shorter claim resolution cycles and maybe higher NPS as a result of that, or is it too early to say that?
We've been able to improve the customer experience overall because of these efficiencies, and it's not just with IA partners; it's with the other vendors that we have connected through the Symbility platform.
Mm-hmm. Great.
We've been on Symbility for 4+ years. Sure.
All right. Thanks very much. Krista, what about yourself in automation? Any digital automation experience around catastrophe for customer experience that you've dealt with?
So our dealing with catastrophes has been pretty old school. I think we're looking at the catastrophe journey from a customer experience, part of our roadmap for 2018, and certainly technology is part of that. But at this point, beyond using the Guidewire tool and the integrations that we have inherent in that, our response to the wildfires in Alberta in 2016 and in BC this year have been pretty traditional insurance practice. I will say that in California, our business in California is largely auto, so we haven't been dealing with a ton with some of the total losses in terms of residences.
Okay, good point. Good point. Do you think the Fort McMurray total cost of that catastrophe will end up being larger or smaller than the California catastrophes, north and south?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't even be able to hazard a guess.
Well, I know it was a major catastrophe for the Canadian market, but not everybody on the call would be familiar with it. So I wonder if you wanted to add any color about sort of the size and scope of that catastrophe.
Sure.
And your experience.
Fort McMurray is a pretty large, well, it's a small town, it really is, but it was the largest complete evacuation, I think, in Canadian history. An entire community of thousands of people was evacuated. And these were folks who mostly worked in the oil fields, so they tended to they had lots of toys and they had lots of big homes and things like that. So there was a lot of expensive losses up there, and building costs in that market are extremely high, and grew, of course, over the course of the recovery efforts. So it's certainly a much smaller area than California, obviously, but we are the number 2 insurer in that area, so it hit us pretty hard, as well as, of course, hitting the folks who live there even harder.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that. I'm going to move to another question here. We may have touched this, unless either one of you want to expand on it, but the question is, how will complete automation address the need for at least some human interface? Now, I know we've discussed this in some fashion, but I think to put a fine point on the question, you read a lot of industry thought leadership articles about the day when bots and AI and other technologies will result in complete instant total automation and settlement of claims, which sort of is futuristic, but we are moving in that direction. And so that leaves or begs the question, what about the need for some human interface? If either one of you would like to expand on the question or answer it, I'll give you the opportunity. So Gary first. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Krista.
Maybe it's my age, I don't know, but I really don't see a place where for very emotional, very traumatic, very large claims that we won't have people involved. I don't see it. I see technology helping out with those quick and dirty claims that, fender benders and things like that are pretty simple and run-of-the-mill and we've seen a million times before. I think those I think customers would want those to be automated as quick and have them happen as seamlessly and quickly as possible. Where I think technology helps with those larger losses is that it helps what I call under the waterline or behind the curtain. So the customer doesn't necessarily see how technology helps us, but it helps speed up the processing time. It helps us make better decisions. It helps us to understand our customers better and provide better service.
Thank you. Gary, before you answer, if you wish to, I'm just going to ask Krista another follow-up question that's on the list here of the same nature. It's what would you say is the ideal ratio of human and machine?
Interesting question. That's hard to quantify. I think probably the vast majority of our claims are simple, pretty simple. And if we can, and I don't have a statistical breakdown on that, but I think the vast majority are pretty simple. If we can find a way to understand patterns, to automate perhaps fraud detection even, and do that through algorithms and artificial intelligence, I don't know, do we want to say 50-50 just to be fair?
Okay, thank you. Gary, on either of the two questions, do you have anything further to add than you already shared?
Sure. There may be some situations in which the technological processing of a claim may play a larger role than the human side of it, but we still feel the need to make sure we conclude the claim with a handshake. And that's a quote from our new CEO, and I say new, he's been in place for a year and a half now. But that handshake can be personal on those claims that are high severity and low frequency, but it could also be a technical handshake to our policyholder. But still, we have to make sure that we provide that great customer experience regardless of what the underlying technologies are. We're still going to need knowledgeable claims professionals to handle and communicate those claims and make good decisions. We've been using some predictive analytical tools for years, primarily in the fraud area. So AI, while it's a useful tool, it's not perfect, and we will always need to engage the experienced claim professional in the process to ensure that exceptional customer outcome. And as far as an ideal ratio is concerned, I think it depends on the claim. Krista mentioned the low severity, high frequency claims. Those might lend themselves to a higher percentage of technical experience versus a human interaction. But on the low frequency, high severity claims, that ratio would be lower on the technical side and higher on the human side.
Thanks again. I'm going to just remind or point out to all of our audience that both of these companies have rated extremely high in recent J.D. Power claims and customer satisfaction rating reports, which tells me, and I think I've got this right, that this focus on the human touch where necessary and the handshake that Gary just referenced must be very important aspects of NPS outcome scoring. So, 100% use of technology isn't necessarily the solution. Thanks both for those comments. I'm going to move to another area, and that's fraud. No webinar would be complete without a discussion of fraud. And so the question here is, what can carriers do to combat fraud, waste, and abuse given automated claims handling? Gary, do you want to start?
Well, the best way to combat fraud is to take a mirrored look at claims history and find out what claims in a particular carrier's inventory lent themselves to a fraudulent aspect. Like I said, we've been using some predictive analytics to help guide adjusters through an investigation, but that's all based on continuous learning and continuous information that we collect and aggregate through a particular tool. I don't know what that is because we have a separate area that handles our fraud detection activities in our organization, but we've been using it for many years, and it's very effective in helping us identify those situations that we need to investigate further. Just because there's a fraud element doesn't mean that the claim itself is fraudulent. It may just be a circumstance, and that's where the adjuster's analytical thought, experience, and knowledge comes into play to take the data and put some human analysis into action and come to the appropriate outcome.
Thanks. Let me put a finer point on the question, Gary, and then we'll move over to Krista for her response. So in your experience, and I know you have a lot of experience in many aspects of insurance claims in all lines, is it your impression that fraud has increased or decreased as automation has continued to enter the process?
I haven't taken a look at it from a data perspective. My impression is that it hasn't changed much. I don't think fraud has increased or decreased. Just the methods may have changed.
Okay. Thanks. Krista, any comments on automation and fraud and the impact of one on the other?
The only thing I can really add, being that this is really not my area, is that in my experience, adjusters who have, and I'll say, been the victim of fraud in terms of having a claimant who has lied to them, I'll put it that way, can on a personal level become more guarded. And sometimes that can extend even into other situations where customers may not be fraudulent. I think that if we can encourage people to keep their spidey senses and observe it when they start tingling and let us know, as well as having good tools that they can trust to identify potential situations of fraud, I think it can take a little bit of pressure off of adjusters and allow them to at least develop a more trusting relationship with claimants.
Thanks. Let me stay with you, Krista, if I may, with this next question, because I think it's sort of right up your alley. Do you see more engagement from millennials in using technology to automate the claims process, such as submitting photos at first notice of loss? And so I think this is a demographic adoption type question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about in the customer experience, we don't compare our customer experience to other insurers usually. We compare our experience to every other interaction we have in the marketplace. So individuals, like millennials, will compare how they deal with their bank, maybe, compare how they deal with Amazon. They don't have to deposit, like go to the bank and deposit that check that grandma got them for Christmas anymore. They just have to take a picture of it on their app. So they're expecting us to be as advanced as everybody else is. And I'm afraid to say that most insurers that I've encountered in looking around, we don't do quite as well as some of the other sectors in the marketplace. So yeah, I think if millennials and frankly others in other generations who are tech savvy have tools available to them, I think they'll use them.
Thank you. Gary, your book of business, I'm sure, is broad enough to include demographic ages across the entire spectrum. Have you observed any differences in adoption or engagement for any of the technologies that you use in claims at the customer level?
We have had exceptional customer experience with the drones. We've been experimenting with drones in the field for a couple of years now, and regardless of demographic, the customers have been exceptionally welcoming to us in allowing us to use that technology on their claims. it's been a great way for us to learn about how to use the technology. In the United States, we have the Federal Aviation Administration that oversees our airspace, and they have a lot of regulations, and rightly so, around operating drones. But when we have been able to fly, the customers have been very receptive to us using that technology. The perspective that I would like to also offer is through the eyes of our employees. We have a wide range of demographic within the employee ranks, and when we did a training session a couple of years ago, we had not switched over to the Claim Center Guidewire product. We were still using our old system, and we were training young employees, mostly who were brand new to the industry, and their initial training was on the green screen system. And as soon as they got the Symbility platform, which is a web-based platform and a very advanced technology, they became engaged and on the edge of their seats and really excited about getting into the field and using it. So from an experience standpoint, having those tools available to the technical savvy employee, regardless of demographic, has also been welcomed and successful.
Interesting. So I'm assuming some of that engagement and excitement on the staff side could very well extend on the claim all the way up to the customer.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see that regularly in the customer experience results.
Very good. I've got a number of questions here of a regulatory nature. So let me ask each of you in a broad sense about the regulatory either considerations or impact or impediments to the adoption of any of the technologies we've spoken about in the claims process. Krista, I'll give you a turn here. Has regulatory been an important dimension as you build your customer experience map?
The only experience that I can share, because this is not really my area, is around anti-spam compliance in terms of regulation. So that's about all I can offer, and that's not really related to the topic at hand. So I'll have to turn that over to Gary to answer that question.
Sure. Gary, how about you?
We haven't seen the regulatory issues come into play from a technological standpoint as far as implementing technologies. What we have done is, as we were configuring the Claim Center Guidewire product, is taking the Unfair Claims Practices Acts of the states in which we operate and ensuring that the configuration matches up what the regulatory requirements are. Beyond that, we have not had any issues with any compliance matters, to my knowledge. And I don't have extensive knowledge of it, but from where I'm sitting, we've been able to navigate those waters rather well.
Well, I suppose you could say that any federal regulations regarding drone operation would be part of that question as well. It wouldn't just be insurance regulation. So what about that dimension of things? Since you mentioned your success with drones, did you have to jump through a lot of federal regulatory hurdles in that regard?
We did initially. It's a good question. We did initially because we filed an exemption request with the FAA under the old rules, the rules prior to 2016. Since then, we've switched over to the new Part 107 regulations, and I'm a certified drone operator, as are a handful of other folks, two handfuls of other folks. And we also joined the Property Drone Consortium, and I'm privileged to serve on the board there. And we've been working on some technological answers within drone operations, but also around CAT response operations and being able to coordinate with local emergency management authorities after initial search and rescue operations are concluded. So there is this umbrella of oversight for drones by the FAA, but we also have local and state regulations that we keep abreast of and ensure that we're operating appropriately. What's been interesting to see over the course of the last couple of years, the FAA does want to relax the operational standards in the United States for drones, but do it in a measured and comfortable way to ensure safety of the airspace, which is, that's all important. And we've been able to find ways of operating safely. The FAA is working on for instance, the FAA is working on a new app to provide near instant exception authority approvals to operate in certain airspace. Right now, that process can take at least 60 days to get approval to operate. And when you're dealing with a property loss or a cat loss, a 60-day waiting period is not going to work for our customers.
Wow, I've never heard the words instant approval and federal agency in the same sentence. Thanks for sharing the insights. So I don't want, pardon the pun, I don't want to drone on here, but one last question around drones that's come in. Are you overlaying drone use with satellite imagery, and how, if at all, does that improve the process?
It just depends on the situation. We'd like to have drones on a lot of claims, but we just can't do it because of the regulatory environment. We had an operator who was unable to fly on certain losses in eastern Ohio because we were too close to air traffic controlled airports. So it's not an all or nothing proposition when we're talking about imagery capabilities. But imagery capabilities mean several different possibilities. One is over an area that's been affected by a cat, such as a tornado or hurricane, but then also there's individual imagery on losses in which there isn't a cat. So we do use some of the solutions that are out there, and we also have the drone operation. And we've taken the approach to our drone operations that we're going to be the ones flying the drone. We're not going to farm that out to a third party. That's where it's where high tech meets the human touch. We want to have our adjusters handling the claim and using all available tools to handle and adjudicate that loss. And if drone is appropriate and safe to operate, then that's the tool that we'd like to use if we can. There are other tools available that could be used, and we could be using the old-fashioned ladder and the climb. It just depends.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Would you ever allow an independent adjuster to operate a drone on your behalf?
We've made the decision that as of right now, we're not comfortable doing that because we're still developing and experimenting on our own on the drone operations and what's safe and what's not. So nothing against the independent adjuster world. It's just something that we're doing on our own when appropriate.
Yep, you want to get it right internally. I understand. Here's a question, and it might be our last question given the time, and don't want to cut into everybody's workday more than we have to here. What type of data is being used to improve the claims process or customer experience, and what additional data do you see being used in the future? Either one of you may step up on that one and help the audience with it.
So if you don't mind, I'll jump in. This is my bailiwick a little bit. Customer experience, sometimes people think of it as kind of a soft and squishy kind of operation, but it's really not. It's really all about data. And then it becomes, how do you manage that fire hose flow of information as it comes in? So we are in the process of modernizing and improving our customer experience and voice of customer program here at Wawanesa. When we get rolling, it's really about pairing customer sentiment data with actual claims data. So at what point during the customer journey did a customer feel a particular way? When did problems come up? what was the event that happened just before that? What's the event that happened just after? If we can find a way to manage all of that data and package it in a way that's understandable, we can use that to improve the customer experience in immeasurable ways, I think.
Thank you, Krista. Gary, I'm sure that data is an important dimension of your operation. How's it being used in the claims process, and what do you see differently in the future with data?
Well, data is a pretty big nut to crack and define, because we've got data from a standpoint of cost to repair and labor rates and that sort of thing, and then we've got data about the customer and their claims history, and also the information about that particular claim. So if you're able to bring all of those disparate sources in and analyze it, maybe you can down the road look to use historical information for predictive analytics, and then also maybe automate some of those smaller claims and increase the automation and technology use. But we're still going to need those claims professionals to be intuitive and understand that the data only tells part of the story, and we need to be able to interpret that information to make sure that the claims outcomes are appropriate.
Thanks, Gary. That wraps up the webinar for today. I wish we had more time. We have a lot of questions left over. I want to remind everybody that both Gary and Krista will be speaking at the Connected Claims USA Summit next year, May 21st, 22nd in Chicago, with an overarching theme of achieving seamless claims. I want to thank Gary and Krista very much for appearing today. I want to thank you all for attending. A reminder that copies of those who didn't make it will be available in the near future. I want to wish everybody happy holidays, season's greetings, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.